Have you ever stepped into a project that immediately made you feel really inadequate? Today I'm going to give you 3 simple steps to be more creatively brave. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. My name is Dustin Peed, creative coach and consultant. I'm so glad that you're with me here today on the podcast. Everything that I'm doing on the podcast and over on the website is to help creatives like you know themselves, know your process, and know your teams more so that you can create greater things together. Quickly, before we get into today's episode, I want to thank you for listening. If you're listening to this on an audio podcast platform, I would really love for you to leave a 5-star rating and review. It helps to get this content out further to those just like you who could benefit from it. If you're watching on YouTube, thanks so much for joining me there today. I would love for you to hit the thumbs up button to like this episode. And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the subscribe and the bell button as well so that you're notified every time we drop new content here, which is every single Thursday. There's some other little clips and shorts that happen throughout the week, but the podcast drops every single Thursday. Also, if you're interested in kind of learning more about what I do and how I may be able to help you or your organization, you can go to DustinPeed, that's PEAD.com, for a free consultation on your creative process and work. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all the places like that, at DustinPeed, P-E-A-D. All right, so today we're going to talk about taking a leap, 3 keys to creative bravery. Listen, last year in 2023, I made the leap to become a solopreneur, which is kind of a new phrase for an entrepreneur that does their own thing, right? This has been the scariest move I've ever made in my life because of the fact that I just turned 40 in January of 2024. There's a lot of just scary things and stepping out on your own and doing your own thing, which I know many of you watching this or listening to this know what that's like. But listen, some things that I've learned through this process already is just 3 simple steps to make myself more creatively brave. And so I wanted to share that with you if you or your team are struggling to be brave in your creativity. So 3 things I want to share with you today. 3 B's, and I made them all F's, or the words starting with F's, because I worked for a church for 20 years, almost 20 years, and you just can't take the church out of me sometimes. And so we're going to have these 3 things for you today that all begin with the letter F. So first key to creative bravery that I want to share with you today. Again, not an exhaustive list, just 3 things that I've learned over the last year. First thing, you need to be forgetful. You need to be forgetful. And here's what I mean by that. First off, you need to forget your inner critic, because your inner critic is going to constantly tell you and speak lies to you that you're not good enough and that you don't belong and that you're an imposter and you're a fraud and you're not good enough, and all of the things that will bring your creativity and bravery down, okay? So forget that critic. Just forget it. Second thing you need to forget the haters. The more successful you are, the people are going to come after you and be like, what are you even doing with your life? Why are you doing this? No one cares. No one wants to hear you. No one wants to listen. No one's going to watch. No one's going to subscribe, whatever the case may be. You need to forget the haters, because if you pay attention to those, you're going to start to believe it. And your creative bravery is just going to lower and lower down. Third thing you need to forget, and when you're being forgetful here, is you need to forget the future. I know that is kind of counterintuitive to a lot of wisdom you may have received. And yes, you can plan for the future and you can have vision for the future, but we are given today. We're given right now in this moment. So what are we doing with it? Hopefully right now you're listening to this and you're trying to muster up some courage in your bravery. But when this short podcast episode is over, what are you going to do with it? You have today, so do something with it today. Don't worry about tomorrow. If you're a believer like me, you know that scripture tells us to not to worry about tomorrow because tomorrow has its own set of problems. Today, however, we have an opportunity to make a real long-lasting impact with our work. So let's work hard and trust the results to whatever they may end up being. So, first step, be forgetful. Forget your inner critic, forget the haters, and forget the future. Second thing you need to do to be more creatively brave is you need to be fearless. Now, I know this is kind of like, well, duh. Obviously, if you want to be brave, you have to be fearless. But let me just share something with you that I found this week. Jean Case says in her book, the book is actually called Be Fearless. So you can just Google that. She literally wrote the book on it, right? She says in her book, greatness doesn't happen by being comfortable, so it's better to embrace risk. That's what I mean by being fearless. Yes, obviously you need to be smart, but creative bravery comes from embracing risk. It doesn't come from being comfortable and doing the same thing that you always do. Get out of your box a little bit, invite others in. Whatever it is that makes you kind of go, maybe not, I don't know how I feel. Just do it anyway, and you'll begin to see some whole new self-confidence take hold in you. I mentioned last week in the episode one of my favorite movies of all time, Meet the Robinsons. Meet the Robinsons. Don't fear failure, right? So you can be fearless. You need to not fear failure. They say in this movie, from failure we learn, from success not so much. So be fearless is the second step into increasing your creative bravery. I know that feels like a duh statement, but you're going to have to take some risk and step forward in faith, which leads me to my last word for the three things that we need to do. You need to be faithful. Now, I'm not saying be faithful like in your marriage or relationships. Yes, you should be faithful in those things. But what I'm talking about specifically here is you need to be faithful to who you have been created to be. In other words, you need to be authentic to who you are. So be faithful to yourself, that you are doing something that is naturally born out of you. There is only one of you that has ever existed and that will ever exist. So don't spend your life trying to be someone else. I know it's difficult. Trust me. When you open up Instagram and you open up YouTube and you open up all these different things and you look and see how all these people are so successful in the things that you wish you were able to be successful at, that's not you, that's them. That's their path, that's their story, that's their journey. That's not your story, your path, and your journey. So be faithful to yourself because there's only one of you. And frankly, the world needs your unique contribution. They don't need you to be a copycat of someone else's contribution, right? Write your own story. Live in your own journey. Follow your own path. So, 3 keys to creative bravery: be forgetful, forget the inner critic, forget the haters, forget the future. You need to be fearless, right? Greatness doesn't happen by being comfortable. It comes from embracing risk. We learn from failure, not from success. And then lastly, be faithful. Be authentic to who you are. The world needs you for who you are. So if you need help taking this brave step, I would love to help you. Go to dustinpeed.com, click on the Let's Chat button, hop on my calendar, and let's talk about how I can help you be more creatively brave for you or for your organization. And let's see the great things that are in store when you are able to open up and do that. I can't wait to be with you next time. We're going to kick off a series. So in the month of March, in the United States is Mental Health Awareness Month. And if you've been with me on my journey of this podcast for a while, you know that mental health is something super important to me. I'm actually writing my first ever book right now about my first 40 years of life and the journey and the role that mental health has played in that 40 years. And I can't wait to tell you more about that as we get closer and closer to a release date this fall. But Mental Health Awareness Month is March, and so I thought it'd be really interesting to kind of combine that with the world of creativity. And we're going to talk for the next 4 weeks about the psychology of creativity. And next week, we're going to start with one that I think is probably the lowest hanging tripwire for any of us creatives, and that's mental blocks. I've got some very special guests lined up for this series that we're going to interview. I can promise you're not going to want to miss that. So make sure you stay tuned every single Thursday when this podcast comes out. Next week, we'll start our brand new series, The Psychology of Creativity, and we'll kick it off by talking about mental blocks. I can't wait to be with you then. I'll talk to you next time on Creativity Made Easy.